Welcome to the Marconi Project, an oral history series of the Italian American Museum of Washington, D.C. In these interviews, we capture the memories and experiences of Italian immigrants and Italian Americans in the nation's capital. We are ready to hear your story.
On April 28, 2024, we're interviewing Lina Pronio. Lina, you have an interesting family background, starting with your maternal grandfather, who you said was a saddle maker for donkeys and horses, and who moved from Campobasso to Puglia. And you said your family was originally from Roseto in Puglia, which, as you know, happens to be the hometown of a number of our parishioners and community members. Your immigrant grandparents had packed up and moved the family back to Italy when your father was a boy. Can you tell us about that and how long your father remained in Italy and what happened next?
Excuse me. My grandparents on my father's side, my grandfather went to Steubenville, Ohio, and he went there as a young man. My grandfather, he wasn't married, and he was living in a rooming house, and it turns out there was some other people in the rooming house. There was some young girls that were my grandmother on my father's side. Her and her sister were orphans, and they were taken from Roseto to Ohio to do domestic help, and they were living in this rooming house. And of course, as young people, they get to know each other. Met my grandfather, and he says, "Where are you from?" "From Roseto, Malfatore, which is in Puglia." And she says, "Well," he says, "I'm from there too." They got married. My grandfather and my grandmother got married. They had two little boys. My father was the oldest, was born in 1905. And he had and then my grandmother had another baby, another little boy, which was, I think, 1906. And because there was really no work, when my father was I should have bought that picture. My father was like 4 years old, and my Uncle Joe was his brother. Uncle Joe, but his name was Giuseppe. My father's name was Lorenzo. My grandfather decided there was no work to take his wife and two boys back to Italy. They went to Roseto. They had a nice life. My grandfather came to America. How he got here, that I don't know. And he worked. He worked for the Mayflower Hotel. He was not a cook. He was a helper. He always talked about peeling the potatoes in the kitchen. That's it. And he saved enough money. I think he got some little pension. I don't know. I don't know when Social Security. I know when Medicare came in. When did Social Security come in?
Under FDR?
Okay, because my grandfather went back to Italy in 1948. And I'm getting away from myself. My father stayed in Roseto. He got married met my mother in Roseto, where she was really born in a town called Cabragota, which is the province of Campobasso. But her family, my grandfather, who was a saddle maker for workhorses, everybody in that area made saddles, and they told him, because he had a large family, he said that they said, "Why don't you go more south? Because that way they don't make saddles more south." So my grandfather, that's what he did. He got his donkey, got his belongings, and they walked, and they fell in love with the town of Roseto because it reminded him of a rose, Roseto. And that's where he settled with his children. And but my mother was born in province of Campobasso, which is Mulazan. And my father and my mother met. They got married. It took my father came to America because he was an American citizen. My parents had a boy, and my brother became an American citizen because my father was an American citizen. My mother, with her first child, which was a boy, my brother was 10 years older than I was. They stayed in Roseto. He went to New York, and if you don't mind me backtracking, is that okay? My father's younger brother, which is like 14 months younger, he was a tailor. My father was a shoemaker. My Uncle Joe was a tailor. When he was 15 years old, he says, I'm a citizen. I'm not going to stay here. They got a ticket. He arrived. He was 16 years old. He arrived in New York, didn't know a word of English, and he's found work as a tailor. And he mastered the language better than my father did, because my father stayed back in Rosetta because of my mother and father, because of his mother and father. And
So you were born here?
I was born here. Then when my father came here, he got married. I think he came here, was 24 years old, when he got married. He came here. It took him 10 years to save enough money to bring my mother and my brother to this country. In the meantime, in Italy, then when my grandmother and grandfather got back together, they had a little baby girl her name was Angela. That's not really my real name. But and then she became a nun at the age of 19.
How did your father connected with Holy Rosary Church at some point, right? How did that happen?
First came to New York, and they also told him, Lorenzo, people in New York don't get their shoes fixed. You got to go to Washington. He came to Washington, and there was a lot of people from Roseto in Washington, and they all lived around here, the Northeast area. On this side of Northeast, like on the other side of Union Station, that's where there's a division over there, and. My mother came here in 1938, and I was born in 1939. But I was born here. But I came here. If you look at the books of registry, I was baptized here. I was born July 23rd, 1939. I was baptized, I think, the 28th of September, 1939. And I lived on 628 I Street Northeast up until I think I was about 10 years old. And then we still moved we lived in Brookland, which is still Northeast.
Yeah. Now, were you coming to Holy Rosary as a child?
I always came to Holy Rosary as a child. Always. We did. I received my sacraments here, my First Communion. I can remember Father DiCarlo. And there was a family, I don't know, there was a family, I'm trying to think what her maiden name was. Calucci, I don't know if they've ever read, that goes way back. And she,
Go ahead.
And she was my Sunday school teacher, and she prepared me for my First Communion. Father DiCarlo was the one that was the priest.
So, did meeting your future husband Silvio, was there a connection to Holy Rosary for that?
Silvio, he came here, and I think he came here in 1948, and he came here. He wasn't really volunteer. Silvio was 10 years older than I was. When we met, I don't know if you all ever heard, but Holy Rosary used to have a fundraiser with a ferry, like a cruise ship that took you to Marshall Hall. Did you ever hear of Marshall Hall? At some place that you had to go with the ferry, and you got over there. There was like a merry-go-round, a Ferris wheel, and they had maybe cotton candy, and that's what Holy Rosary did. They used to have a fun. I should have asked Yolanda because, her and I knew each other from children, and yes, that was a fundraiser, and we got on the boat. Everybody got in, paid a ticket. And there was a bunch of young men. I think I was like 18, 19 years old. And I met Silvio. And then I remember, that was in the spring. I remember at one of the festivals, I saw him again. And that's why you had a little bit of eye contact. That was it. And I got married in 62. And that's how I met Silvio. But I received my sacraments here, my First Communion. I got confirmed late because, those days they had to wait for the bishop to come. He came in June of, I think, 1958. It's also in the book of registries here.
Now, did you and Silvio go back to Italy to visit his hometown or to visit Roseto?
The first time we went as husband and wife, we went in '69. We went for a wedding, and we went to Roseto for the wedding, and then we went to Miglianico. He was born in Miglianico, province of Chieti. We went to Chieti. We went to Miglianico. We were there for the Feast of San Pantaleone, which is the 27th of July. And then from then on, we went quite a few times. Yeah.
To his hometown.
His hometown.
And also,
when I went, I always stayed a month. The first week was in Naples because I stayed with my aunt that was a nun. Then when we would go to Abruzzo, for his hometown, we stayed a week because Silvio really enjoyed back there with his cousins and his aunts. Then we would go to Roseto, my hometown. I had aunts and uncles, and I really enjoyed the company of my aunt, who was a nun. I think the last time we went was Silvio always said that he wanted to go back one more time, but he, got sick, and that was it.
Now
But I'm looking at this, and then Silvio, has said he was not the founder of Northeast Ironworks. When he came to this country, his father had him do a little bit of construction, and then he found that this Northeast Ironworks, and he started working with them. And when he worked with them, they employed a lot of Italian people that also came here. And then he stayed with the company. The partners, they were partners. They eventually he bought them out, and he became the president of Northeast Ironworks. But he was not the founder of Northeast Ironworks.
Now, did they do the ironwork out front of Casa Italiana?
They did a lot of ironworks, but another company also did it. They did. His company did. Then he became president of that company. I want to say 50 years ago, because we were living in the other house when he. Which now I'm living in this house 40 years, so. He did all the ironworks, let's say, around the ramp and we used to have a parking lot next to the rectory, but that came down. Yeah. He did that ironwork, and he did in the ramp, and also the piece of railing that's in front of the mural in Casa Italiana. Oh. Yes.
Oh. Now, is the home you're talking about now, is that the home where you said Tony Volpe built the fireplace?
Well, Tony Volpe, he had a partner, his brother-in-law.
Yes.
Okay. So Sylvia was really good friends with them. And our first house, we moved in there in 66, and we had a stone fireplace. And Mr. Volpe was the one that did it. And he also did I also have a stone fireplace in this new house. But the one that really was there every day was the one on Stonecrest. Yes.
Oh.
And he wasn't. I was not involved. We had each little zone, Puglia, the Bruzzese people. They have their saints. The people from Roseto, there was St. Anthony's, and my father would always, get it. They would go around, collect little donations so they can put the feast together, but not St. Gabriel's.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work with the St. Anthony Society and your role as president of the Altar Society?
Well, St. Anthony's, I just really, only thing is I fix the basket with the bread. Somebody donates the bread, somebody donates the flowers. I just fix the basket with the bread. But I've been with the Altar Society, I guess it's been almost 30 years now. And
that's a very long time.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of joy. I have wonderful people that help me too. There was a time, everything kind of fell apart with the pandemic. There was a time when we had 2 people that came every week that did a little bit of work in the church. Change different things, the candles and stuff like that. I always do the linens. I always take care of the altar cloth and order the flowers for Christmas, for Easter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I'm sure you had a lot of other contributions, too, because you were named Woman of the Year at the gala at Casa Italiana in 2016. That's quite an honor.
Right. Well,
deserved, very well deserved.
Well, because, Father Ezio started the the galas with the different people that he recognized, and there were so many of us that did things. He could see that I was there every week. What I did with the Altar Society, we have a bake sale. I was part of a team that we did the bazaar downstairs on the day that they had the lasagna dinner. I was involved with that a little bit with the fried dough at Villa Rosa Festival.
Pretty much had a hand in everything that's going on at this church.
Everybody did. Everybody. And then the story about the pazzella maker. I got married in 1962, April 29th. And my husband, we were married, and my husband took his parents to Philadelphia to see some Aunt Mary and Uncle Tony, Uncle Paul. And we came home, he said to me, I bought you a gift. I said, you bought me a gift? I was only married a couple months. I said, you bought me a gift? He said, yeah. And he took this contraption out. See, people from Roseto, we don't make pizzelas. That's definitely a Bruzzese cookie. Now it's all over. I said, what's this? And you ever seen the pizzella? You ever seen the pizzella maker? You ever seen the?
I've seen the one that you donated to the museum.
Yeah, that's it. I says, "What's this?" And he says, "Well, you have to ask Mom how to make it." So what you do? You do the recipe. You heat the iron on a gas stove. It's like this. You put your dough. You make your dough. You make little balls, and you put it in there. You put it. And you got to turn it over to heat both sides. And that's it. I said, oh, my goodness. But I did learn to do that.
So that was a hint to do what his mother used to do, right?
Yes. And then they came out with the electric machine. So that's why I said, I'm going to do. I said to Father Etsy, would you like this? He says, oh, she opened up his eyes. I said, sure. I said, because my kids will they're not going to use it. They're not even going to use my electric one. That's it. But I just wanted to make sure that Sylvia D'Enough, he wasn't the founder of Northeast Iron Works. But when Sylvia became, he had a lot of Italian people that came to this
immigrants.
Church. Came to this church. Yeah. That's it. I mean, I always feel I had a wonderful life, a wonderful childhood. We didn't have any relatives here, but, our paisans, they were like family. Yeah. And the people from Roseto, they did play a big active part in this church. They did.
Well, I would say, Lina, the church in our community is lucky you landed in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. It's been a wonderful interview.
Thank you. I hope I was okay.